One of my favorite ways to spend an evening is by listening to an old radio program from the golden age of radio, so the 1930s to 1950s. You can stream these through sites like Old World Radio, which is my favorite, Old Time Radio Theater is another, or radioechoes.com. I'll put links in the description if you're interested. I was listening to a program that aired in the 1970s called The Price of Fear with Vincent Price. Now, Vincent Price was largely known for his roles in horror films and was a Gothic figure, famous for his renditions of Edgar Allan Poe stories and his unparalleled reading of Poe's The Raven. My favorite film of his was called House of Wax, where he portrays a murderer who uses the corpses of his victims as mannequins in his wax museum. It sounds gruesome, but bear in mind that this was filmed in, I believe, 1953, so it's not very graphic. But to me, Vincent Price was an elegant, charming, well-spoken, dapper gentleman. He was a man of many interests and talents. He loved cooking and even wrote a cookbook. He held a degree in art history, was a passionate arts advocate and collector. I came across a quote by him that really stuck with me. And it was, "A man who limits his interests limits his life." I think discovering and pursuing your interests is so incredibly important to living a full life, and I think this is especially important to those of us who live alone or are solitary by nature, because we need to fill our own cups, as it were. There's a misconception that solitary people or single people, particularly those of us who live alone, live dull, empty, or lonely lives. But I find that the opposite is true, because we often have the time, the energy, the headspace, and the privacy to pursue our interests. So I'm going to share a few ways that I like to nurture my mind and spirit, develop my intellect, unleash my creativity, and broaden my scope of experience. I would say that the driving interest and passion throughout my life has been reading. I have been obsessed with reading ever since I was a little girl. I always have to have books. I always have to have a stack of books with me. If my stack of books gets too low, I feel that same sort of anxiety when the pantry is running low and it's several days till payday. I just need to have a comforting visual stack of books, knowing that they're waiting for me after a long day, or just a regular day. Honestly, I read every single day. I have as far back as I can remember. This stack of books I just purchased at my local bookstore, and my interests mostly lie in 18th, 19th, and very early 20th century literature. But I do read quite a bit of nonfiction. I love poetry, and I've been increasing my collection of poetry lately. And I just love to be surrounded by books. I love to have my books with me. I like to look up and see them. Many of them become little displays of art in themselves because their covers are so beautiful. I also like the look of old bindings. And looking up and seeing all these books, it's like a map of where I've been, who I've met, the places I've visited. They're like companions to me. And because I read so much and I just really love learning new things, several years ago I started a commonplace book. I didn't really know that there was a term for what I was doing until I came across it somewhere online. And the practice of keeping a commonplace book goes back hundreds of years, and it was just a place for everyone in the family to jot down things that they wanted to remember. So there would just be pieces of information, quotations, recipes, anything that someone wanted to have handy when they needed it. And I just started giving mine a bit of creative flair by using colored pencils and markers and doing little doodles and things like that at the top. In here I have quotes that I really have been moved by or want to remember. I have excerpts from books. I have pieces of poetry, sometimes whole poems I'll have written down. I'll have definitions of words that I've come across and want to remember. And I'll just all sorts of stuff in here. And it's a really creative way to spend the evening. You can do the driving? Okay. Mind the speed limit. And sometimes we'll just get in the car and drive and discover a new town or a new park and take a nice long walk. Or I'll find a new coffee shop somewhere I've never been before. Go antique shopping in a place I've never been. My grandma taught me the basics of crochet when I was a very little girl, and I remember spending a few evenings with her, and I would work on my chain as she was doing something elaborate and thinking we were having this great time together. But after I moved away, I couldn't ask her for lessons anymore. So what I picked up has been through YouTube. Not only do I love to read, but I also really enjoy writing. I like to do a bit of creative writing when inspiration strikes. And when it doesn't, I have a book like this, Things to Write About, that are just, it's full of writing prompts. And this all looks blank because I don't actually write in this book. I just get separate sheets of paper because I kind of feel like once the imagination is unleashed, it just goes on and on and on. And not only do I enjoy creative writing, but I like the act of writing itself, just putting pen to paper. And I have noticed that my penmanship has gotten a bit sloppy in the recent years. So I found this book, I believe this was at Barnes and Noble a few years ago. I don't even think they're in business anymore. Anyway, this really struck an interest with me because I thought, well, that's, something it is a lost art. You don't really see beautiful handwriting anymore. And I just love old-fashioned hobbies anyway. So this was something that I picked up, and you can do some practice. You can get tracing paper. I found a pad of tracing paper on Amazon that I picked up, and then at first I was just using notebook paper to put over it and practice that way. And of course, I just love to spend time with my babies. I do quite a bit of reading and research into pet health and pet care tips and tricks to try to give them the best possible life and the healthiest life that I can.